to the show. This is the Frankly Fantasy Football Podcast, fantasy football for the average Joe. We are your hosts, Frankie and Johnny, back together again. Frankie, did you miss me last week, Frankie?
I did miss you, man. It wasn't the same. I mean, I held down the fort, but it wasn't.
You did a great job.
You know, it's Frankie and Johnny. It's not Frankie.
Frankie and Johnny.
It's Frankie and Johnny.
It's Frank Lee Fantasy Football, but it's Frankie and Johnny. Let's get it right, man. I had a good time in Germany. I missed a lot of football. I was able to watch some while I was in transit and in between flights and all that stuff. Crazy week in football.
Crazy.
Had some big upsets. Had some big weeks out of some guys here, and there's a lot of just. It seemed like 8-point weeks and 10-point weeks. I didn't talk about those guys on ice. I looked at the guys who really killed you, but there were a lot of guys who didn't help you out this week for sure. The bye-apocalypse, that hurt. Jesus. How many guys were on bye last week, man? I was plugging in the biggest shit bags I couldn't even believe. I'm sitting here going, I guess I'm starting Romeo Doubs and Alec Pierce. And I mean, it was brutal. How'd you do this week?
Not too bad, man. 1 and 2 of the 3 leagues. And but man, it's with some of the injuries and my champion no longer playing for the rest of the year because
it was a rough day for our champions.
Wow.
Johnny lost another champion. Damn it. I lost another champion. We'll talk about that. Frankie's champion is just he's gone.
Sacco.
He's done, man. He's done. Wow. All right. Well, we've got a great show. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. We've got a great show today. We're going to get into all the things we love getting into, man. We're going to get into the news and notes. We're going to do Frankie and Johnny's Song of Ice and Fire. We're going to do the waiver wire. We're going to get into our hit its and quit its and flex appeal. And Frankie's going to help us cross the streams. Before we get into anything, this episode is brought to you by CalSPRA Employee Recruitment Services. Tired of staffing companies charging high hourly rates to recruit subpar employees for your business? CalSPRA Employee Recruitment Services sets you up with a program that sustains a constant flow of new recruits coming to your door. How do they do it? It's simple. They had to. CalSPRA has owned a manufacturing business since 1989, and when the employee crisis hit, they came up with a system with proven results. No hourly fees for employees they bring to your business, just one flat fee to get you real results. For more information, call now at 330-584-7759. Use the promo phrase Frankie and Johnny to get a free consultation for your business. Don't forget, everyone, please follow us on social media, on Twitter at FranklyFantasyF, and on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Frankly Fantasy Football. We got a lot of news to cover, brother. Let's get right to it.
The season 2000 yards. Just don't expect absolutely lost. Football.
News and notes.
All right, kicking us off, let's not forget we do have buys this week. 2 high-flying offenses on a bye. We've got the Chiefs and the Chargers that you will not have access to those players this week. All right, let's get to some news, man. It's going to be busy this week and next week. We've had some crazy trades. The trade deadline is next week, November 1st on Tuesday. So this week, we're going to see some action. We're going to see some guys traded before the week starts. So be aware of that. But, man, blockbuster trade last week, CMC.
Wow.
Christian McCaffrey traded from the Carolina Panthers to the 49ers. He played last week. He played for them. He was limited. He only played about 28% of the snaps, but he 8 rushes for 38 yards, 2 catches on 2 targets for 24 yards receiving. He had less than 5 points, but again, 28% of the snaps. Nobody expected him to go in there and just carry the complete load for this team. Frankie, talk to me about CMC. How are you feeling about him? What did you see out there? What impact is this trade, do you think, having? We didn't get a chance to talk about that last week. Yeah, man.
I love this trade for the 49ers. I think what this does, John, is this completely elevates, it completes that 49ers offense. Think about this for a second. You now have CMC, who, by the way, you gave up a second, a third, a fourth, and a 5th round pick. So this dude better be worth it. He will be. You now have CMC as your running back who can play in the slot. You have Juszczyk, who's your fullback that could be a halfback or a tight end. You have Deebo Samuel that could also be your number one receiver, tied along with that with maybe your best pure running back. And John, now you have Brandon Ayuk really coming to his own as a true receiver too. What this shows me, John, is this is going to be the most versatile offense we potentially have seen in years, absolute years. And I'm forward thinking a bit. Jimmy G's played really well this year. I'm not taking anything away from him. Let's just say, though, what happens next year, John, when CMC's really feeling ingrained, everything's clicking, now you involve a Trey Lance. I just am forward thinking here, and I really, really love what this offense has done. And one quick call out too, man, CMC wasn't really supposed to be a part of this game plan this week. The funny thing is when he found out he got traded, he contacted the 49ers and said, hey, you need to send me the playbook so I can read it on the plane. And so that's what he did, John. He had a good grasp of this playbook in order for him to even play a little bit. So for me, man, you got a super smart, insanely talented, versatile running back who, yes, has had history of injuries, but he's been healthy this year, man, and he's been showing some really, really good stuff. So I love it, man. I absolutely love this for the 49ers.
It is going to be a very versatile offense. I mean, you're not going to know who's running the ball and who's catching the ball because they have dual threats in both receiver and running back and fullback for that matter. Very, very interesting. I can see check down Charlie with Jimmy G really checking down the CMC, man. I think he's going to do a lot in the passing game on that team. Well, let's talk about the other side of this with the Carolina Panthers. They got rid of CMC, so you've got two guys in the backfield with Chuba Hubbard and Deontay Foreman. Deontay Foreman took the bulk of the carries. Chuba Hubbard left the game with an ankle injury. His status right now is unclear, likely to miss a little bit of time. What are you thinking with that backfield now with the Carolina Panthers?
I'll tell you what, man, it's definitely depleted. That's first and foremost. It is a depleted team in general. Let's just, staple there, very depleted team. But for the running back specifically, man, I like Hightower. Or Foreman, excuse me. God, I went Hightower. Deontay Foreman. I was thinking Deontay Hightower. Deontay Foreman. The thing is with him is that he was efficient as a Texans backup. And then last year, what he proved alongside that of Derrick Henry when he was banged up, he really showed out alongside who is it? Hilliard as well there. And so now that he gets his opportunity to really step up to the plate, this could be a very similar thing to like what Mike Davis did while CMC was out. So, John, I think as long as you have Foreman, you have a decent piece of this offense. Chuba Hubbard, I think they missed. I think they took a big swing and a miss when getting him from Oklahoma State. He just hasn't really panned out, even in the opportunities that he's gotten, and he's young. And so it's probably been a bit frustrating on their end, but Foreman, man, he's really stepped up to the plate. So, guys, if you have Foreman, hold on to him, and you probably might look to start him with some of the bye weeks this week.
Absolutely. I started him this week.
Yeah,
he helped me out. He got like 17 points. Yeah, especially with Hubbard out of there. If it's a true 50-50, I'm not really interested in starting either of them. But with Hubbard out and it's going to be Deontay Foreman taking the bulk of the carries, yeah, I think you could feel good about starting him. He's a starting running back on a below average team, but he's going to get volume. Okay, man, we had some big guys get hurt. I think he was my hit it last week. Still hit on him. He still had like 15 points before he got hurt. I love this guy, and I'm very, very sad. I had an opportunity to trade him. I made a play for Justin Jefferson last week, Frankie, and I got him.
You got
him. And
I
made this trade because I play you next week. I had Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs on bye. If I traded and got Justin Jefferson, I'd have him on bye last week as well. So I was going to basically try to take the loss next week so I can beat your ass next week, man. I am so excited. But I had an offer. They wanted Breece Hall. And I said, no, I can't do it. He's going to be a top 10 running back. He's going to be, end of the first round draft pick probably next year. I said, I'll give you Ramondre Stevenson instead. And God damn it, of course he gets hurt. So then I lose Ramondre and I lost Breece Hall. Breece Hall, superstar rookie running back for the New York Jets, torn ACL. It is confirmed he is out for the rest of the season. It hurts. It's just brutal. I feel so bad for the kid. He looked so good. Yeah. All right, another big trade. This just happened this week, and it's a blockbuster here. This was really interesting. With the news of Breece Hall going out, The Jets get aggressive. They think they can win this year. They're looking to playoffs at this point. The Jets traded Jacksonville Jaguars for James Robinson to fill in. Now, it's a conditional 6th round pick that the Jets traded to the Jaguars, but it could become a 5th round pick if the running back rushes for 600 yards this season, apparently. Robinson has already rushed for 340 yards this season, so he needs 260 more for that 6th to turn into a 5th, and that's a big deal. Thought that was interesting. I saw a little insider baseball there on that one. How do you feel? Talk to me about this trade. This is one
drooling.
That
I'm drooling.
It's interesting. Talk to me about it. How do you feel?
There's so many different facets of this trade, guys. First and foremost, the Jets, this is phenomenal. So well done. Just absolutely well done because they got ahead of the trade market. They were aggressive as hell. And based on James Robinson's contract, guys, he is on his last year. And only for the cap space, he's only $500,000 towards the cap. So literally, think about this. You're a Jets team who's invested long-term in Breece Hall. He goes down. He's done for the year, but you know he's the guy moving forward. So you can't sign a Kareem Hunt. It doesn't make sense because you're going to need to pay him. And so what they do here is it's a mutual benefit to James Robinson just as well as the Jets. James Robinson needs the opportunity to ball the fuck out. He needed that opportunity to be the guy because, again, he's an undrafted free agent, an unrestricted free agent after this season anyways. So he's playing for that next contract. For the Jets, you got a bell cow with Michael Carter now not having to have that complete role. So you added that depth piece that was really necessary. And again, it was only $500K to the cap. And so now you get to run this guy into the absolute ground, knowing that you have Breece Hall getting healthy for next year. You're not going to sign James Robinson next year. So it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And he's probably going to get over 600 yards. I would assume he's going to get over 600 yards. There's 10 weeks left. He really has 9 weeks at this point, including excluding a bye week. So he's going to get 260 yards, guys. So for the Jags, that's interesting because now, John, Travis Etienne's the guy. There's no question, not even a doubt in my mind that he's the guy right now. You're also potentially going to get a 5th round pick out of this, which is kind of sexy. But here's what's interesting is that they now lost a big depth piece. So are the Jags positioning this trade, thinking ahead for maybe signing on a long-term back or somebody along those lines to pair with Etienne, to spell him, because Etienne's already been banged up, already out for the year last year. He's already had some injuries this year. So it's going to be really interesting to see what the Jags are doing to position themselves, because we know how Doug Peterson liked to run the ball. He always had Corey Clement and Boston Scott and multiple guys. He didn't just focus on one true running back. And so this is going to be really fascinating, guys, how this turns out. Just from a pure football standpoint, but also from a fantasy standpoint, because I think this elevates James Robinson. This elevates Travis Etienne. But what's crazy is this is going to add an additional piece. What we don't know of yet for the Jags could be JaMycal Hasty. It could be another trade piece that ends up coming to the forefront in case Etienne gets hurt or just as a solid backup. So, man, when this happened, guys, for those listening and watching, I called Johnny immediately. I'm freaking out. It's like 8:30 at night. My kids are asleep and I'm sitting there yelling on the phone, excited as hell. John, this is really cool shit, man. So really, really, really fun trade all around. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun to see what happens.
I think you're right. I think the Jaguars have a plan. I think they have something in mind. They're going to look at a guy that they're going to bring on for a 2-3 year contract, I think, because it doesn't make sense that they would bring somebody on for the rest of the year and hand it over to Etienne. I think Etienne is better as that 50-50 split guy. I think they want a thunder and lightning type situation in that backfield. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, there's going to be something happening this week. I guarantee it. Let me ask you this. I mean, Etienne, I'm firing his ass up for sure this week, regardless of what happens. Even if they bring somebody on, it's like CMC. They're only going to get, so many snaps anyway, being this late in the week. What do you do with James Robinson right now? Can you play him? Can you start him?
That's tough because he's still early enough in the week to where you technically could. Like, it's not like CMC, came on board and then it's like a 2-day, 3-day turnaround, right? To where he has to be suiting up. And so for J-Rob, he literally has all week, man. So if he can get a couple practices in and we are able to check this guys by, let's just say, end of day Thursday night game, let's say Friday rolls around and he's out there and we're seeing this dude run, fire his ass up. I would definitely look at him in the flex. Not 100% sure about an RB2 spot, guys, but right now, John, I would take the risk if I'm a Jets fan or somebody that has J-Rob and maybe put him in the flex this week.
Me personally, if I've got other options, I'm not going to take the risk with the bye weeks and everything and all these injuries. You may not have a choice. I mean, it is who you have. I know in our leagues, we're in a 12-team and a 14-team. In that 14-team league, if you've got a body that might get on the field, you start to if
you have Alec Pierce, then you're drooling with excitement.
I was so happy. I know. I was so happy. All right. I wanted to mention as well, we talked about the fire sale happening in Carolina. Robbie Anderson did get traded to the Cardinals. Last week, he only saw 12 snaps in one target. He had 0 catches. So I'm not expecting much out of Robbie Anderson, really. Are you?
No, I think it's really tough to say, especially with D-Hop. First game back after missing 7 weeks, he didn't even miss a beat. 6 weeks, didn't even miss a beat. 14 targets, 10 receptions, over 100 yards. So no, I think he's going to be a very similar piece as what he was, John, in Carolina as what he will be in Arizona.
Yeah. Let's talk about some weird shit that went on with New England. It was so frustrating to see the New England Patriots just completely curb stomp the Browns. And then they play Chicago on Monday night and looked like that. Are you kidding me with that? Mac Jones started. He was benched and Bailey Zappi came in and played well for a minute. I thought for a second that they were going to just take off and destroy the Chicago team. And then it all fell to shit. Did you see the press conferences with Belichick?
I saw clips. I didn't see it all. Talk to me.
Well, they asked him multiple questions, and it was multiple choice question, and he said basically, have you named a starter? Does this mean that Mac isn't healthy? And do you see Bailey Zappi starting, next week? Is that an indication? And Belichick's like, I don't think that's what you're going to see. So, I mean, it was just the most
Belichick fashion.
Yeah, it didn't answer the question at all. It meant nothing. Or he said something. No, he said, well, that's just a hypothetical. Like, no, dude, it's not. You benched your starting quarterback and you put in another guy. We're asking you who's starting. And he said it was a hypothetical. Yeah, terrible. Anyway, that's kind of a mess there right now. Speaking of benching quarterbacks, let's get your champion on the pines, bud. Colts bench injured Matt Ryan for Sam Ehlinger moving forward. Now, Matt Ryan, he does have, I think he's got an ankle sprain, but they were going to bench him anyway. Sam Ehlinger moving forward. What does this mean for that Colts team? Is it bad?
It's rough. I mean, it's not great. And it's, I was thinking about this, John, because I was like, could they position this to trade Matt Ryan? Could they do that? Like, does that make sense, right? Like, to maybe a different team that desperately needs somebody. There's a few out there. And the problem is he's too expensive, right?
He's too expensive and he's got a bad wheel.
He's got a bad wheel.
And he hasn't played well.
John, think about this. This is what we talked about earlier in the year. Carson Wentz was crucified, right? Like last year for throwing over 20 touchdowns and 7 picks. Got traded, said, no, we're good. Matt Ryan had 9 interceptions already this year. And it just, and this is statistically one of his worst seasons. It just doesn't make sense. I don't know what the hell's going on with Matt Ryan. Coming into this year, they were talking about, hey, man, everybody was talking about it, including me. I thought that they were absolutely a surefire playoff team that could make a run. And it's really weird, man. And so, Matt Ryan, with him going down and Sam Ehlinger coming in, it's really tough to say. I think that this probably elevates. It would have to. Jonathan Taylor, it has to. I mean, he can't get worse. So, but I think what this does, at least immediately, is it might hinder that of Michael Pittman Jr. Just a tad without us really knowing any chemistry. Again, Sam Ehlinger has not had an NFL snap in a regular season game yet. So we'll see what happens, man.
Yeah. More quarterback troubles here. Ryan Tannehill was in a walking boot with a lower leg injury after the game. It's very possible Malik Willis starts in week 8, so pay attention to that. That's no bueno. Not a lot of pass catchers you were starting on that team as of right now anyway. It's going to be the Derrick Henry show all day long. DK Metcalf. Oh, man, I feel like I'm starting to take these injuries personally. And as we see these next injuries that I'm about to name, these are all guys I love. These are guys I own. I mean, DK Metcalf, I don't have to explain to our audience how much I love him. He's dealing with a patellar tendon issue. It doesn't require surgery, but he's definitely going to miss some time. How do you think this affects what's going on with that Seattle Seahawks passing game? Surprisingly good Seattle Seahawks passing game.
Surprisingly good. I think this immediately elevates Tyler Lockett. I think this is going to boom him even more. But the other thing, I think it brings down Geno Smith a tad. I think that, with having the Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, it took a little bit of the load off of Geno Smith to make crazy plays. And so now without, let's just call it their number one guy, that is their dude outside of now Kenneth Walker Jr. It's going to be tough sledding. So I don't really know what to expect from the additional guys that they have there because they really haven't been involved very much. And so it's going to be really strange to see what receiver kind of jumps in and really helps out. John, I think what this does do then, I think Will Dissly and Noah Fant can be very interesting. I also think Kenneth Walker Jr. is a grand slam play every week right now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's going to be an absolute stud. What about Marquise Goodwin? He was kind of the guy who filled in. 4 catches and 5 targets, 67 yards and 2 touchdowns. Do you think that was kind of fluky? Do you think he stepped into the game plan that DK they already had for DK? And do you think he can repeat that? Is this a guy we should be picking up and starting?
He's a guy that you should definitely pick up for the short term. And I say that because this dude's a burner. So yeah, it could be the same type of game plan because DK and him run fairly similar routes because DK is so fast. And so the level of play goes down from DK. I mean, that's a fall off there, but Goodwin has been around for a while, man, and he knows how to play, and he runs good routes. So, yeah, man. I mean, we could see Goodwin kind of be relevant here, at least for the next, let's call it 3 to 4 weeks, potentially.
All right. We'll probably talk about him a little bit on the waiver wire segment here. Mike Williams. Johnny lost a champion. Mike Williams has a high ankle sprain, and he's definitely going to miss some time. This one hurts. This team's been riddled with injuries this year. They've really underperformed. What impact do you think this is going to have on the Chargers offense?
Oh, I think it's significant. I think it's fairly significant. And I say that because they've been banged up. They've been banged up all year between Joshua Palmer having issues, Carter having some issues, Keenan Allen missing multiple weeks, and now the number 2 guy on your team from a receiving point goes down. This is bad. So what this bye week though could not have come at a more perfect time for them. You got to get Keenan Allen healthy. Got to make sure that Austin Eckler is feeling all sorts of good right now, and then really get Joshua Palmer back to feeling healthy again as well. Because if Josh Palmer can step into number 2 again, very similar to that of DK to Goodwin, this is a really good comparison because the difference is very similar. Like Mike Williams to that of Palmer, it's pretty significant, right? But they still are fairly good players. And so I think that Palmer could be a guy, at least for the short term for sure. But this is going to be interesting because also what I'm thinking, John, is Everett. Gerald Everett, the tight end, who's really been a good piece this year. He might end up taking over as that next kind of guy outside of that of Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler.
Certainly more of a red zone target with Mike Williams being gone. Yeah. I've got Gerald Everett in one of my leagues. Do not drop Gerald Everett for another tight end this week. Keep him on your bench. Tight ends are an absolute shit show, and Gerald Everett is very solid. He gets targets. He's involved. He's a big body in the red zone. Don't drop him. Keep him on your roster. I think Joshua Palmer also needs to be rostered. I'm not sure if I feel great about throwing him out there, but in the right matchups, Mike Williams could miss some time here. This could be quite a while. High ankle sprains take a while, so it could be a month before he's back on the field. All right, Amon-Ra St. Brown. See, this whole injury, the fantasy gods are not smiling upon me this week, Frankie. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he was ruled out of the game with a concussion. Went through the concussion protocol. He was not diagnosed, but due to the new protocols, he had to stay out of the game. So watch his status for week 8. He should be all right to play, but keep an eye on that for sure. Alan Lazard, I've been talking him up all season as well. He left the game with a shoulder injury, was seen in a sling. That's not good. No real update yet, but watch for the status for him. Man, they've got Christian Watson. How bad do they need him back right now? He's been out.
Desperately.
Alan Lazard's out. Maybe Green Bay makes a move here before the trade deadline. I could see something like that happening, man. What do you think?
Totally could see it. I mean, they're going to have to pay. They're going to have to, pay some draft capital for sure. But I highly recommend them getting somebody or something. Robbie Anderson would have even been interesting with this type of team. Just having a true deep downhill threat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just, they need to be in the market right now for a receiver desperately.
Yeah. All right, let's just kick me in the nuts as we round out the injuries here with a Browns injury. David Njoku, really breakout season for him, really, as far as tight ends go. High ankle sprain. He's going to miss 2 to 5 weeks, and that's the time frame. So they didn't give me time frames on these other high ankle sprains, but that's typically what it is. It's going to be about a month. Harrison Bryant, is he a reliable guy you think you can plug in for tight end?
He can be, yes. I mean, he did win Best Tight End of the Year award when he was coming out. What was that? Last year was his rookie year, so 2 years ago. He's not David Njoku, man. What we are seeing from David Njoku, it was going to be a really, really fun year. Harrison Bryant, he's going to need to because our other tight end as well, I'm drawing a blank on his name, was also hurt. So it's going to be a bit of a fall off though.
If you need a tight end, you've got Gerald Everett. You've got Travis Kelce. You don't have anybody backing these guys up with the bye weeks. Pick up Harrison Bryant. He's a guy who could get you 30 yards and maybe get in the end zone.
Exactly.
I think would be a pretty safe bet with him right now. All right, Frankie, you know what I want to do here? We've got a lot of rumors out there, and there's 3 guys I want to talk about. The trade deadline, like we said, is November 1st. I want to hear your take. Put on your, I know your dream job is to be an NFL GM, to be in the war room. I know, me too. Just to sit in there and to make the deals. That's what I do in my professional life anyway, is make deals and bring people together. I want to do that in the NFL, and I know you do. It's your dream job. So let's talk about a couple of these guys. There are 3 particular players that I'm fairly certain they're going to be traded before the end of the week. I really do. First one, this is very close to home, and we've got a lot of info on this guy. Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt, the Browns are listening to offers right now for Kareem Hunt and for Greedy Williams, but we're not going to talk about Greedy. Let's stay with fantasy. Kareem Hunt, we've been waiting for this all year. We've been waiting to see if this is going to happen. I think it's going to. Talk to me about what you think is going to happen. Who are the targets? Where would he go? And what do we do with Kareem Hunt?
John, I think, guys, from a fantasy side of things, hold on to Kareem because I would put every amount of dollar on it that he's going to get traded. The reason being, John, is because right now it doesn't make sense for the Browns to hold on to Kareem, knowing that he's already outwardly requested a trade, and he has been very good about holding that back because of Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb and him are boys. It's a respect thing, and Kareem's respecting it. So character, he's back to having some good character after some of the issues. Now, from where he's heading, John, I really there's a bunch of different things, right? I could see a couple possibilities. One being the LA Rams. They made
that was my first thought.
Push for CMC. And for those of you who don't know, it came down to the Rams and the San Francisco 49ers. And I can tell you this much, John Lynch, who's the GM for the 49ers, was not going to let this happen again. What I mean by that is they tried to get Matt Stafford and that didn't happen. And they tried to make one other big play, and whatever that was also fell through. And so they wanted to make sure that CMC was the guy. So now you look at it from this perspective, okay, maybe OBJ might also re-sign back with the Rams, knowing that he has a tie to that Kareem Hunt. Also, Kareem Hunt immediately elevates that offense without a question of a doubt, the style of play, because they're leaning more towards that of the Darrell Henderson type, right? The guy that's a pass catcher, but that really is shifty and hits the hole. Kareem does all of that, but brings a level of aggressiveness that they are lacking. It's like we call him the Tasmanian devil, because when he hits that hole, man, it's violent. He's a violent runner. Yeah. And so I really, really like that for that team, or for the Rams. I also really like the Broncos. And the reason being is because Mike Boone is out. Latavius Murray now is the primary back. And they do have Javonte Williams, yes. But I think Javonte might need a little bit of help long term, especially after the severity of this injury here. I would bet money on it, John. They would be hard pressed not to trade. They should be trading Melvin Gordon. There's bad blood there. So that leaves a huge hole. So right now, think about it. If Boone is out now, Javonte Williams is hurt for the year, Gordon is potentially going to get traded. There's been so much talks about it. That leaves them with one running back, and that's Latavius Murray. So Kareem could be an interesting guy to pay him a high 2-year salary or 2-year offer. That way they have him for this year, and then they pay him a 2-year extension. Right. So that makes a lot of sense. So there's a few teams that I really think could benefit from that of Kareem. But yeah, John, I think that it makes a hell of a lot of sense for the Browns to do it as well. Kind of what I was alluding to in the beginning, because we do not want to pay him. We do not need to pay him. We just drafted Ford in the 5th round this year, who's looking very good. We still have Durnest, and God, we need to continue to run Nick Chubb. And for fantasy owners that have Nick Chubb, it's also very frustrating, right? So because he's not getting the full load. So it makes sense from a fantasy side as well as an NFL side to trade Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, it does. And you know what? Siren's going off, buddy. Siren's going off. You know, we do this anytime we're talking about buying or selling a guy. And I'm telling you right now, you've got to buy both Kareem Hunt and Dearness Johnson.
Yeah.
I think it is highly likely Kareem Hunt goes somewhere. If he goes somewhere, he's going to go somewhere to be a 3-down back. That's his skill set. That's what he can do. He's going to be fire. Buy him immediately. He's had 2 rough weeks the past weeks. Hasn't been really that involved. So buy him low. Get Dearness Johnson. He's probably on your waiver wire. Get him, because it's not just going to be Nick Chubb for every single down. They're going to run Dearness Johnson, and when we've seen that split between the two of them, he's played very, very well. So get him on your roster as well.
John, the other interesting thing is with the Panthers that just got all of this capital from CMC, they might try to make a play. And then they anchor their team now on this of Kareem, even though they're blowing it up. They foundationally want to keep DJ Moore, Brian Burns, the superstar defensive end, and now anchoring that with Kareem, and you still have a lot of draft capital from CMC. It's very interesting. That could be a really cool play too.
Yeah, very well could be. He could be back with Baker.
He could be back.
All right, let's talk about another guy, not quite as exciting, but I do think he's on his way out somewhere. Cam Akers. Is there any teams that even have any interest in Cam Akers right now, and do you see him going anywhere?
You know, I thought it was going to be he to me was a very, very good play for New York Jets before they went J-Rob, which I think was stellar. I would not have expected that. But, you know, I could see him going to Denver potentially. That's always interesting. The thing is with his skill set and the injuries that he's had and the problems from a culture standpoint, it seemed like with McVay and things like that, that's tough, right? That's somebody you might not want to bring in a locker room. It's a little bit different than that of Kareem. So, John, I'm struggling where Cam Akers might actually fit in here. He's not going to be a 3rd down or 3-down back by any means, no matter where he goes in my eyes. I just don't know if he has that truly anymore. And from what we've seen, I mean, he had a couple opportunities and he squandered them. So, I could see him being a nice backup. Maybe, you know, depending on Swift and Jamal Williams and things like that, they might want to take a shot. I doubt it. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense, though. I mean, you could see it again in Denver. You could see, you know, maybe
Baltimore.
I was going to say you could make a play for Baltimore, maybe Arizona. To help out with James Conner, you know, some of the issues he's having. So I don't know. The problem with him, again, the market is shrinking for guys like that.
Yeah. I would hold Cam Akers for now just to see what happens. But I just have a feeling he's a running back by committee guy. I just don't think he any longer, after the injury, I just don't think he's got it any longer to carry the load. I think he needs to be in a committee, which I think might be super frustrating for fantasy moving forward.
Definitely.
Even if he does get traded, you're still looking at 2 weeks before you even know what the hell his role would be on that team. All right, last guy I want to talk about, which is very interesting, and we alluded to this earlier on certain teams that need some receivers. Jerry Jeudy, the team is listening to offers for Jerry Jeudy, a wide receiver for the Denver Broncos. That's interesting because I think he's been lost so far on this team. I think his talent is incredible. We've seen flashes of him playing very well. And I think he's just been lost in this bad play and bad coaching on the Denver Broncos this year. What are some exciting possibilities for Jerry Jeudy? And, well,
if Aaron
let's
Rodgers,
just start off with saying the Packers. Okay,
I was going to say, if Aaron Rodgers right now isn't calling up Matt LaFleur and the GM saying, if you do not get this guy, like what is wrong with you? Like, I don't know what more. Like, the Packers need to sign Jerry Jeudy. If they don't, it is blasphemy. That is ridiculous. So I would definitely make a move if I were them. Also, the Browns are very interesting. The Browns need a lot of receiver capital here. DPJ does look like he's stepping up to the plate. Amari Cooper has been really, really nice, but I definitely think that there is ability for the Browns to have a really nice, super solid 2 receiver set, especially with the packages that they run with multiple tight ends and the 13 style play. Even into a 3 receiver set, right? That significantly elevates what we had with a young guy in David Bell who's still learning, and Schwartz, who's been just god awful, terrible. And so I think that makes a lot of sense, John, is Jerry Jeudy to the Browns. But for me, man, it's Packers. Like, everything in my soul is screaming Packers because they're still in it. They are still in the playoff hunt right now. I believe they're 3-4. Yeah, Vikings are 5-1. But you give Aaron Rodgers somebody, anybody, anything, that can change drastically. And so I really think that that's a huge team that needs to be paying attention to Jerry Jeudy right now, man.
Now let's look at 2 other receivers that are on the chopping block, on the trade block. Brandon Cooks, we talked about him earlier in the year, hoping the Browns would look at grabbing him in the offseason, and they went with Amari Cooper. Brandon Cooks is very interesting. He's also just getting lost in that offense. He used to be the guy. He used to be peppered with 10 to 12 targets every week. He's not getting that now. What do you think about Brandon Cooks moving forward?
Oh, I think it would be amazing for fantasy owners if he got traded. Like, the thing is, he's still seeing good targets. He's still seeing between 5 and 7 targets a game right now, but it's just not. It's not doing anything. And it's because of Davis Mills, unfortunately. And it's nothing against Davis Mills. He's just not that great. And so he's not throwing the ball to that's how Brandon Cooks has always wanted to be thrown to. And he's a deep threat. That's what he is. And so, yeah, man, I think from a fantasy side of things and from Houston's side, I think you would definitely benefit from trading him, especially with you get something for him now. You have Nico Collins that's performing well. You have a few other these young bucks that are really stepping up. You have Dameon Pierce. Now you have players to anchor that team on. So now get something for Brandon Cooks right now. He's not even relevant in your offense that much outside of target share. And so I think there's absolutely a market for him in the NFL right now. I mean, we just named a few teams, right? We named the Packers, we named the Browns. I mean, there's absolutely.
Let me throw out another team here.
Seattle.
Another team that wants to get aggressive with another receiver, it's the Chiefs.
The Chiefs, great call. The Chiefs would be phenomenal right now with another receiver. They would love that. And maybe the Jets with all the shit going on with Elijah Moore, right? Like, he doesn't want to be there, Corey Davis underperforming, and they have Garrett Wilson, but Garrett Wilson and Brandon Cooks play very different. Very, very different. And so that could be interesting. So especially with the Jets going all in, go all in. Maybe it's the Giants as well. You think about the Giants receiving room, it is atrocious. It might be the worst in the NFL. And
it's the most expensive receiving room in the NFL, and it's probably the worst. Yeah.
Richie James.
I just don't think the Giants have any room for anybody. I don't think they have any cap space to be able to do this. All right, last guy I want to talk about real quick, Chase Claypool. Hasn't been on fire at all this year. You've seen, the emergence of the rookie receiver. Is it Pickens or Pickett? I get them both mixed up.
For the receiver?
Yeah, George Pickens. Yes.
Like I'm picking my nose.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, apologize, guys.
But Chase Claypool, we've seen him be a superstar. He's had those moments. I think Chase Claypool gets traded this week, and I think a team like the Chiefs could be very interesting for Chase Claypool.
It could be very interesting.
Getting a big target like that in the red zone, with Travis Kelce out there, they can't cover all those guys. Could be really, really interesting. So what are you doing with these guys, Frankie? Are you going to hold on these guys? Are you going to try to buy these guys? Are you going to sell them because it's a little risky of what happens? What's your move with some of these guys?
So there's definitely a few. So for Brandon Cooks and Claypool, I'm holding. I'm definitely holding because that could change. You're not going to get as good value as what you think. Even if if you're trying to get Brandon Cooks, you're going to have to probably give away a good flex piece or even an RB2 or receiver 2/3 type of thing. It wouldn't make a lot of sense as of this point in time.
Who are you really going to go after? You're going to have to go after them before they get traded.
Jerry Jeudy.
And that's my advice. Go after them before they get traded. Because one of these motherfuckers is going to go play with Aaron Rodgers, most likely.
Yeah.
And then the price tag's gone. You can't buy that guy at this point. Who are you going after really aggressively?
There's two. Kareem Hunt and Jerry Jeudy. I'm going after extremely aggressive. I will overpay a little bit for those guys and take the risk because the reward is so high. So, yeah, those would be the two, John, that I would really be targeting.
All right.
What about you?
Sounds good. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to try to get Kareem Hunt. I just don't think anybody's really going to trade him to you because the rumor of him being traded has been out there so much. But yeah, Kareem Hunt and Jerry Jeudy, I would get very aggressive for. Cam Akers, I just don't give a shit about at all whatsoever. Brandon Cooks, if I'm desperate, if I'm hurting in receiver, yeah, I'll make a play for him, but he doesn't excite me. Chase Claypool's a guy I think I'll go after. I don't think you have to pay a lot for. And I think if he's in the right situation on the right team with a good quarterback, I think he could be very, very interesting. So I may make a play for him and just see what I can sneak through and steal him a little bit this week. All right, let's get to Frankie and Johnny's Song of Ice and Fire. I love how we just sit there and listen to the music, and it makes me feel excited. All right, let's get to ice. Let's see who is on ice north of the wall, making out with the little red-headed wildling girl. I'm going to start off with a guy that I traded for because I wanted to buy him low, and I thought I was a genius. Like, oh my God, what an idiot. I can't believe I traded this guy for Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts has been so frustrating. What are you going to do? I'm going to throw him out there each and every week, I guess, unless I get a better option. He was 3 for 5 for 9 yards, 2 points. Thanks a lot, Kyle Pitts. You are the Pitts. All right, Frankie, what do we got next on ice?
John, we got Romeo Dubs. Really threw up a dub. Nothing. Literally zero catches on 4 targets for 0 points. Romeo Dubs, you are frozen solid.
Get the hell. Aaron Rodgers is going to kick your ass. Get out of here. All right, Ryan Tannehill. I know he got hurt, but he only missed 1 snap when he got hurt. So he did play this shitty of a game, actually. He was 13 for 20 for 132 yards with a fumble and 2 sacks. Ryan Tannehill, thank you very much for the less than 1 point on my Superflex team, you son of a bitch. Frankie, what do we got next?
Man, we got a running back that has kind of been in purgatory since week 1, man, and that is A.J. Dillon. 4 total rushes for 15 yards, which equates to under 2 points. A.J. Dillon frozen solid to that turf, man.
See you later, man. He's droppable at this point. With all these injuries and everything else, you need to pick somebody up. You can drop A.J. Dillon. You're not going to know when he's going to have a good game, and it's been very consistent since week 1. You're right. All right, next guy on ice. This was very unusual, actually. The Browns are typically not very good against tight ends, but Mark Andrews came into the week questionable, but he played 88% of the snaps, so he played the whole game. He had 1 carry for 4 yards, and he had 0 catches on 2 targets, less than 1 point. Very shocking. Or did the Browns just bottle him up? What happened there, Frankie? I didn't even see that game.
They literally said, we are shutting down 2 people, and that is Lamar and that is Mark Andrews. If somebody else goes off like Gus Edwards does, that's on us, but those are the 2 we're shutting down.
Yeah. Fluke week. Mark Andrews will be back in action, I'm sure, next week. Jared Goff, Frankie, this guy's been hurting you. I know that, man. Jared Goff, it's a tale of 2 Goffs here, man. He was blowing it up, and then he's really been shitting the bed recently. 21 for 26, 228 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 2 fumbles, 5 sacks. Wow, that's a lot of stats in one line there. Negative points out of Jared Goff, man. Are better days ahead, or are we seeing the real Goff now?
Definitely better days ahead. When DeAndre Swift gets all suited up, Amon-Ra St. Brown gets healthy, and same thing with Josh Reynolds, we're going to see a different Goff.
Yeah. This one I like to see on ice. They played the Browns. I know they beat him, but the Browns played against him. Their game plan on defense against him was very well. Lamar Jackson, you don't get to see this guy on ice very often. He was 9 for 16 for 120 yards. He completed 9 passes. Oh, my God. 10 rushes for 59 yards. You know, when you hold a quarterback to under 60 yards rushing, it sounds weird, but this was a victory. The Browns got 3 sacks on him. He had less than 8 points. So not frozen solid, but not what you want when you've got Lamar Jackson. James Robinson. Now, he wasn't on the injury report heading into the week 7, but he had 0 carries and only 1 target. This is hard for me to explain. I don't really understand what happened here. He had 0 points. I don't know if they had planned on trading him or if he is a little banged up and they didn't want to show that he was hobbled. I'm not quite sure what was going on there. Any ideas?
I don't know, John, deterministically, but both of those would be what I would assume, one or the other.
Yeah. All right. Cortland Sutton, 3 for 9 targets, 23 yards, less than 4 points. Didn't have Russell Wilson this week. Is that really just what that is? Or is Cortland Sutton just kind of screwed right now? Or do you feel good about bringing him back out next week?
I definitely feel good about bringing Sutton back out, especially if Russ does play. I mean, I think, right, Rippon or Ripon, however you say that guy's the quarterback's last name for the Broncos, the backup. I mean, he did the best he could. He's nowhere close to a Russell Wilson-esque. So I think that you march Cortland Sutton back out there. He had 9 targets. It's going to be tough sledding until Russ gets back, but you got to play him.
Yeah, as of right now, the reports are that Russ is looking like he might play or that he should play. So keep an eye on that. They are traveling to London. They play the Jacksonville Jaguars in London this week, 9:30 a.m. Eastern game on Sunday. Michael Gallup, no help for Dak Prescott there. 0 catches on 2 targets, 0 points. Talk to me about Tom Brady. What's going on with Tommy boy?
You know, Tom's really it's really interesting, John.
He's having a rough time right now, isn't he?
He's having a rough time. You know, he's personally, professionally, but this stat line though is really interesting because it actually shouldn't be this bad. Mike Evans dropped a wide open in stride touchdown. It was absolutely insane, and it would have completely changed this. And then they dropped another massive completion that would have set them up. So, John, Tom Brady still put up a pretty shit stat line, very average. I shouldn't say shit, average stat line. But I think collectively as a group, there's something happening in Tampa, and it's really, really clouding, all of the goodness that they did last year and the year prior. So yeah, they need to figure that out, man, because it's tough sledding right now for them.
Yeah, let's get right to his running back as well. Right next to him on ice, right over the wall there, Leonard Fournette, 8 rushes for 19 yards. That I don't understand. 2 catches for 7 yards. He had less than 4 points. The Buccaneers getting just completely blown out of the water by the Panthers. They're on a fire sale. What the fuck is going on?
They just get rid of CMC. They don't have Bake. They don't have Darnold. They have to walk out PJ Walker. They trade Robbie Anderson. And then you go and beat the shit out of Tampa Bay.
I know. I don't get it. The NFL is very confusing, man.
Sunday.
Did you see let's talk about some we had shitty play calls again this week. When are we going to get to the point where they start making some changes with the refs? When are we going to start holding these guys accountable? Did you see what happened with Mike Evans? Going into the tunnel, Mike Evans is walking in. Two of the line judges went up to him and asked him for an autograph. That is such a conflict of interest. I can't even believe it. They need to go down on or come down hard on these guys like they do on players for doing shit like that.
John, so they ended up coming out and saying that from their investigation so far, they have not found that he actually got an autograph. But to your point, what are they doing? Like, what is that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's not appropriate.
Got to get better, guys. Last guy on ice here is Keenan Allen. He didn't play after the second half. He came out of the game. He said his hamstring wouldn't allow him to be explosive. It's been a struggle with him. That hamstring lingers for a long time. Like you said, the bye week's coming at a perfect time. Got to get him out there, especially with Mike Evans being out for quite a while, I'm sure. 2 catches on 2 targets, 11 yards, 2 points. All right, well, man, we got to see what our ice clip is this week. You're you look back at what you saw, you see all these guys on your roster that just took a shit, and you're just like, man, I should have, I could have, I would have.
Oh, man. I should have started Dallas Goedert this week. I knew it. Oh, I knew it. I could feel it in my bones. I should have started him, but I didn't, and so I lost. All I needed was 2 points. 2 more points. I should have started Dallas. I'm still thinking about that draft. I can't get it out of my head. I could have had Alvin Kamara, and I went with Saquon Barkley. What am I thinking? I could have had him. Don't even get me started about last week. Are you kidding me? I would have won. I would have won if Michael Thomas wouldn't have got hurt. Michael Thomas, thanks a lot. You made me lose. I don't even want him. Not even going to trade him. I'm just going to cut him. I've had it with him. Shoulda. I just could have. I woulda. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. I should have joined a different league.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda, man. That's what happens when you have these guys that are on ice. All right, Frankie, let's get to fire. Talk about this guy. What a freaking day, man. It sounds like they've kind of righted the ship over in Cincinnati, eh?
Oh, yeah, dude. Who day? How about that? Who day?
Yeah.
Joe Burrow, John, 34 for 42, 481 yards,
Jesus.
3 touchdowns, and then he ran the ball 3 times for 20 yards and an additional touchdown. Guys, that is 45 fantasy points, and he is the first person in NFL history to have 4 games of more than 500 total yards in the history of the NFL in his first 3 seasons. Think about that. In his first 3 seasons, over 500 yards in total yards, 4 separate times. That is absurd, man. Joe Burrow, you are on fire, baby.
Seems like they're figuring out their offensive line issues on
Yes.
Cincinnati team. Oh, yeah. All right, I'm gonna talk about a guy here that I highly doubt that you had in your starting lineup. If you did, your balls are way bigger than mine. Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton steps in New Orleans Saints, 30 completions out of 47 attempts, 361 yards, 4 passing touchdowns. He did have 3 picks, 4 rushes for 21 yards, 37 points out of Andy Dalton. If you were that genius who had Josh Allen on a bye and you filled in with Andy Dalton saying, well, I guess I'll just take the loss this week, you didn't. You probably won, so congratulations. Frankie, who do you got next?
I got the running back for the Las Vegas Raiders, man, Josh Jacobs, absolutely going absurd this year so far. 20 rushes, 143 yards, 3 tutties, and then he also had 3 receptions for 12 yards, guys. That equates to 36 points. Josh Jacobs is tearing up on a team that declined his 5th-year option. Very, very interesting.
Very interesting. I was in Germany last week, Frankie. Next week I'll be in Vegas, so I'll make sure to stop by and give Josh Jacobs your love. Okay,
please do. Give him a hug.
I will. Frankie, I'm gonna let you talk about this next guy too because he was on your team and definitely blew up for you. Talk to me about Patty.
Good old Patty Mahomes, Money Mahomes, baby. 25 for 34. 423 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. What does that equate to, you might ask? I'm glad you asked. 34 fantasy points, guys. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs continue to roll and be on fire.
This next guy I am in love with. I've got him. I drafted him, and I've been playing him with a big smile on my face now, man. Kenneth Walker, running back for the Seattle Seahawks with Rashad Penny going down. It's his backfield, and he is a goddamn star. 23 rushes for 168 yards and 2 touchdowns, 32 points out of Kenny Walker Jr. All right, Frankie, who goes along with your tandem here with your Joe Burrow? 45 points out of Joe Burrow. He had 3 touchdowns. Somebody caught him, right?
Somebody's catching them. And actually, John, if you're okay with it, I'm going to lump 2 in there. I'm going to lump in Jamar Chase. Guys, Jamar Chase had 8 receptions on 11 targets, 130 yards, 2 touchdowns for 31 fantasy points. And opposite of Jamar Chase, guys, I'm not talking T. Higgins, who also had a decent game. I'm talking Tyler Boyd. He had 155 yards and a touchdown. Fun fact for you, John. Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins have the exact same amount of receiving yards through this season so far, 455.
That is a fun fact. I like that. You know what? While you're at it, Frankie, why don't you, Patrick Mahomes threw 3 touchdowns. Where did they go, man? We got 2 guys on fire here on his team.
Blowing up, man. We had 2 guys. Mecole Hardman is one here, guys. He had 4 targets, caught all 4 of them for 32 yards and a touchdown, but they utilized him in a beautiful way this week. He had 2 rushes for 28 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns, 26 fantasy points. And on the opposite end of him was Juju Smith-Schuster playing Call of Duty with his boy Patty Mahomes before the game. It was a beautiful fucking thing. He had 7 receptions on 8 targets, 124 yards and a touchdown. Now, damn it, John, that boy's on fire with 24 points, baby.
He is on fire. Let's go to another quarterback you probably did a little plug and play with this past week. Daniel Jones, quarterback for the New York Giants. 19 for 30, 202 yards and a touchdown. Okay. But then all of a sudden he decided to turn into fucking Lamar Jackson out of nowhere. 11 rushes for 107 yards rushing and a touchdown. 30 points out of Danny Dimes. Very, very unusual and cool. All right, Frankie, this is a guy you love. Why don't you talk about him? This is your man crush.
Bring out the guitar, and you know what I mean by that. Austin Eckler, baby. He had 9 rushes for 31 yards and a touchdown, but that's not where he excels. He had 12 receptions on 12 targets, 96 yards, and another touchdown, guys. That is 30 points in fantasy, which elevated him to the number 1 fantasy football running back through the season thus far.
Interesting. He overtook Nick Chubb, huh?
Yep.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. All right, the last guy on fire here. I want to talk about him. He helped me out this week. He's kind of a boom or bust running back, unfortunately, but when he does boom, he booms. Aaron Jones, running back for the Green Bay Packers, 8 rushes for 23 yards rushing, but he had 9 catches on 10 targets. That's what we want to see out of Aaron Jones. 53 yards receiving with 2 receiving touchdowns, 24 points. You gotta love it. All right, Frankie, we're running out of time here. Let's get to the waiver wire. Talk about a couple of guys that you think could really help our rosters this week with all these buys and with all these injuries. Why don't you pick out like 2 or 3 here that work out?
Perfect, man. So my top 3, John, is going to be number 1, Gus Bus. Gus Edwards, guys, if he is still on that waiver wire, pick his ass up because he had 66 yards and 2 touchdowns this past week with J.K. Dobbins going back on IR. He is a must roster and probably start at this point in time, guys. John, my second is going to be actually a tight end here. And Greg Dulcich, who is a rookie out of UCLA, who they invested in, I believe, a 4th-round pick. And they are playing again at Jacksonville in London this week. But the interesting thing about this tight end, John, he's had 12 targets in the last 2 weeks, 9 targets last week, and he's had back-to-back double-digit fantasy weeks between this week and last. So I really, really like this guy. He could be a very, very interesting flex for no matter who's at quarterback, whether it's Russell Wilson or Ripien. And John, the last guy, I'm going to actually double down and go Mecole Hardman. And the reason being is because he's starting to be more and more relevant, even more so in the rushing game. And so they're starting to do a lot more reverses and getting him into open field and utilizing that speed. And so I think that as long as he continues to perform well, he's had 3 weeks in a row, John, where he's had double digit points. So guys, that is a really interesting piece that if you can even bring him on your squad, utilize him in a potentially a package trade deal.
Yeah, and a couple of guys to take a look at. Marquise Goodwin, we talked about him, wide receiver for Seattle with DK Metcalf going down. Paris Campbell versus Washington this week. It's very risky, but it could be a guy you can look at. And Wan'Dale Robinson, wide receiver for the New York Giants at Seattle this week. All right, man. It is time. Let's get to our hit it's and our quit it's, baby.
I want you to hit it.
Oh, yeah.
Hit it and quit it. I want you to.
All right, Frankie, let's get to your first hit it, man. Who you got?
Johnny, so this week, man, I'm hitting the shit out of Kenneth Walker Jr., baby.
I'd hit that too.
I'm hitting the hell out of that. He is playing against the New York Giants. He continues to perform at an insanely high level. He had 23 carries again, as we mentioned, 168 yards, 2 TDs. Guys, he's had 250 yards rushing in his last 2 games. I'm hitting the shit out of Kenneth Walker Jr., baby.
All right, love that, man. My first guy that I am hitting today is going to be Dameon Pierce. Dameon Pierce, 20-plus touches in each of the last 4 games. That is, that's what you want out of a starting running back. 100 yards when he gets 20 touches in the last 4 games. And when he does that, it's at least 14 points in half PPR. That's what I'm talking about, man. Get this guy in your lineup. He's currently the running back 13. They're playing against Tennessee. They're at home. Tennessee is not a very good rush defense. Get him on the field immediately. All right, who else you got, buddy?
John, for my other hit, I'm going to go with Chris Godwin versus Baltimore. He had 13 targets this past week. He had 7 receptions, 43 yards. He's still looking for his first score, and this is the week I think he gets it. They're playing in a must-win game. They're still number 1 in the division, but they're right. The Saints are right behind, man. I think Brady's going to have a big bounce-back week. I am hitting Chris Godwin this week.
All right, I like that. My last hit it is going to be Travis Etienne. He's been in the news quite a bit today, but you know what? You have to start this guy. They're going to be in London versus Denver. It is a tough run defense, but this guy's going to be the 3-down back. He's going to get the rushes. He's going to get a lot more passes, a lot more touches than he's used to. Right now, he's the running back 21, so he's been a pretty solid. The past couple of games, he's become a very solid running back too. They traded off James Robinson. It's his backfield. He had 15 touches for 119 yards and a touchdown last week. He went from 50% snap count to 80% snap count. That's what I want in my running back. I want him on the field, and I want opportunity. We know he's got the talent. Behind him, the only guys that could steal any carries are Jermichael Hasty and Snoop Connor. That's right, I said Snoop Connor. So I think Travis Etienne's job is pretty safe right now. Yeah. All right, Frankie, let's get to our quit-its, man. Who are you quitting this week?
So, John, I'm quitting Michael Gallup versus Chicago. So he had 0 points, as we mentioned. He was frozen solid on ice, but the problem was he was only targeted twice. Now, he struggled coming back from injury. I do think eventually he'll figure it out with Dak. Again, this was Dak's first week back as well. But right now, man, I am not willing to put him in my starting lineup until I see it. So Michael Gallup, I'm quitting against you versus that of Chicago.
All right. I'm quitting a quarterback this week, and I know everybody's going to be freaking out. If you've got Justin Fields, I highly recommend you try to trade his ass. All right, sell high on him after this 1 week. I don't know if anybody will be buying it, but possibly somebody who's got maybe a Patrick Mahomes or a Justin Herbert on a bye.
Yeah.
But he's at Dallas. He's going to come back to life this week. Come back to earth this week. Dallas is the number 1 fantasy defense. They've got 4 or more sacks in 5 of the last 7 games. I just think they're going to eat Justin Fields' ass for dinner, man. I'm sorry. He hasn't completed more than 15 passes all year. Without his rushing, he absolutely has zero value. Zero value. I think Taysom Hill has more passing attempts than Justin Fields this year. It's just going to be, really difficult with this defense at home. I don't see it. You got to sit Justin Fields. Who else you got, man?
So for my second quitted, John, I'm going to go A.J. Dillon at Buffalo. Guys, again, we mentioned he rushed 4 times from 15 yards, no receptions, but here is why I'm quitting him. He has failed to have double-digit fantasy points in any game except for the week 1. Think about that. Outside of week 1, he has not hit double-digit fantasy points in half PPR, guys. So this is tough. In addition, Buffalo's coming back healthy as hell from bye week, hungry as shit. They're going into Buffalo. Yeah, I'm quitting on AJ Dillon this week, man.
I don't want to start anybody against Buffalo.
God, no.
You know? All right, my last quitted here, which it hurts my soul, but hear me out. There's a method to my madness, man. You got to be smart. I'm going to quit Kareem Hunt this week at home versus Cincinnati. The past couple of weeks, he said very little usage over the past 2 weeks, and it's kind of been surprising. 2 weeks ago, he had 4 carries and 1 target. That's not a typical Kareem Hunt game. Last week, he had 5 carries and 2 targets, so I don't like that at all. Maybe they're trying to keep him healthy so they can deal him. I really don't know. But it's almost certain, it's extremely likely that he gets traded this week before the game, and he's not really going to play for this new team when he gets traded. It's really too risky to put him in your starting lineup right now. Hold on to him for sure and see where he lands. But you just can't. You have to make at this point. Maybe he doesn't get traded, and then you can put him in your flex and feel good about it. But at this point, it's likely he gets traded. Make plans to be without Kareem Hunt, at least for this week. He gets traded somewhere, he could be an absolute superstar. All right, Frankie, we're going to leave. Let's do a little cross the streams here, man. All right, we don't have time for a little flex appeal. We've got so much news and so many injuries and trades we had to get into. But let's do a little cross the streams and see what we got going on here, man.
We'll cross the streams.
Excuse me, Egon. You said crossing the streams was bad.
Cross the streams.
All right, buddy. Who do you got for us to help us with our injuries and bye weeks?
So, John, this week I have 4. If you guys need to pick up a quarterback, I'm going with Kirk Cousins. Guys, they just came off a relaxation type of week. They're now playing against Arizona. For the record, we mentioned who was on fire. The fucking Red Rocket was. And guess who he played? He played Arizona. So if the Red Rocket's firing right, I think Kirk Cousins is going to be firing all over the place with JJ and that of Dalvin Cook, KJ Osborne, and who's the other guy? Who's that other receiver over there, John, for the Minnesota Vikings? I can't remember. I'm drawing a blank.
Justin Jefferson?
No, his counterpart. God, I just had a brain fart. Thank you, Adam Thielen. Yes. So yes, I like Kirk Cousins this week as the stream for the quarterback, guys. For the tight ends, I'm going to go with Greg Dulcich. Again, I mentioned him as a pickup. He's at back-to-back double-digit fantasy points. Jesus, I'm freaking out.
I thought we were going to get through the whole episode without you having a brain aneurysm.
I know,
I'm glad
man.
you did. Thank you.
So I had to. It just felt homey. So, okay, Greg Dulcich, love him as a stream, guys, against Jacksonville and London. And for the defense, here is an interesting one for you. Seattle versus the New York Giants. You're like, whoa, what the fuck, Seattle?
Whoa.
Guess what? After the last 4 weeks, Seattle has now moved to the number 3 spot from a fantasy football perspective for defense. Number 3 in defense for fantasy football. So very, very interesting. So yeah, Seattle could be pretty wild, man.
All right, I like it. Thanks for the help, brother. Before we take off here, I found a fantasy football anthem video, and I just absolutely loved it. And hats off to these guys who created it. So I want to leave everybody with this before we head out here.
I wake up this morning and I got a giant grin. Summertime is over, it's that time of year again. I know sometimes I'm grumpy and I know sometimes I pout, but now I'm getting back to what I really care about. It's something that I look forward to every single day. It's something that I'm sad about the time it goes away. It's something that has been inside my life for 20 years, and my heart is full when it appears. Yes, it's you. Fantasy football. It's all new. Fantasy football. I got lots of work to do this 6 months till it is through. Fantasy football. I love you.
This happens to him every single year.
What's that, honey?
You obsess over this and ignore everything else.
I love you too, honey. Yeah, first there was this draft and I walked over to a friend's. I came home just a little tipsy, it was 2 a.m. And I woke you up because I wanted to make you aware of all my late round steals, because I'm sure And I will live and die with every single play he makes. And I will even yell at him if he makes a mistake. And yes, again, I am aware that my own team is fake. But if I win, I get a trophy. There's so much at stake. Hooray, fantasy football. It's today, fantasy football. And it's every day, remember, this football splendor will keep me busy every day from now until December. Standings release, look at that. I'll see where I'm ranked and I'll look at my stats. Wednesday, waiver wire engagement, super important. I need a free agent. Thursday, there is one crappy game, but I have to watch because my kicker is playing. Friday, injury reports are out. If my guy is hurt, then my win is in doubt. Saturday, I need to tinker my lineup. If I get it right in the standings, I'll climb up. And Sunday, I will start watching it 1 and then wait past 11. The last game is done. Monday, it's the last game of the week and I'm really beyond. And my lineup is bleak, but I could win if Giovanni Bernard had 7 touchdowns and 600 yards. There's hope, fantasy football. Oh wait, no, fantasy football. I lost again, I rarely win. Fantasy football, yeah.
That was awesome. I've not seen that, John.
I
That is
saw
so
it and
good.
I had to play that. It was just it just felt like us, you know.
It's totally us.
Manage it. You wake your wife up in the middle of the night drunk and tell her about all your late round steals. I've been doing it for 20 years. Oh my God. It's absolutely perfect. I love it, man. Thank you everyone for listening. We truly appreciate your support. Our Facebook page and Instagram page and YouTube is really, really blowing up. Thank you for subscribing. Please hit that subscribe button and the notifications bell on YouTube. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube at Frankly Fantasy Football, and on Twitter at Frankly Fantasy F. I want a big thanks to Anthony Sistone for playing music for us, original music for our podcast, as well as Liam Hickey for helping with the production, and Jesse Kelsey with socials. And thank you again to our sponsor, Cal Spra Employee Services. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Frankie, I love you. Any parting words for everybody?
May the fantasy gods shine upon you.
You son of a bitch.